Welcome to the Hua Hin Today Podcast, where we bring you interesting conversations with a wide range of people living and working in Hua Hin, Thailand. I'm Jonathan, and if you're interested in Hua Hin, the people who live here, or just expat life in Thailand in general, make sure you like, share and subscribe to our YouTube channel and Facebook page. We're also on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. For this episode, I was delighted to chat to Wendy Herbert. Now, Wendy's been an expat in Asia for over 30 years. Originally from New Zealand, she's been living and working in Hua Hin for about 10 years. She recently started the Female Expat YouTube channel, where she offers tips, advice, insights to women who are thinking about becoming an expat in Asia. Wendy's a brilliant communicator, and she's someone I've known a little bit from my time living in Hua Hin. Whether you're in Hua Hin, thinking of making the move here, or just curious about life overseas, you'll get plenty out of this conversation. Let's get into it. Welcome.
Thank you
Wendy.
very much.
Thank you for joining us on. I'll let the cat out of the bag a little bit. So this is the first podcast we've recorded.
It is.
It might not be the first one that goes out, but it's the first one we're recording.
Well, I am flattered that you've asked me to break that cherry, as it were.
Since we started messaging about doing this,
yeah.
You told me, and we'll get to this as well, but you told me that you'd worked in radio for like 15 years. So maybe you should be sat here, I'll sit over there.
Absolutely not.
And hopefully you can drag me through this. I've done lots of interviews in my time, but I'm very specific about how I want this to be, and I want it to be conversational, relaxed, free-flowing, and hopefully we can do that. So I don't have any questions, I have topics, no questions, and we're just going to chat.
Fantastic.
So let's take it back to the start.
Yep.
That's the best place to start, I think. Where did you grow up? What was early life like? And how did you end up becoming an expat of 30 years? Yeah.
Yeah, this is a good question. So I was born in New Zealand and raised in Christchurch, but my family immigrated to Australia when I was 7. So I kind of think of myself as someone who's always been travelling. If I look back on it in my lifetime, there was never one place I was very well settled for any particular amount of time. So I went through school and all of that sort of stuff in Sydney. But then I met a partner who was a little bit older than me, an architect, and we started becoming expats about 2 years after I met him, and then had a child and then had other children. And so I have lived in, as you say, I've lived in 5 different countries. So I've lived in Macau, Singapore first, Macau, Hong Kong, Malaysia, and now Thailand, over more than 3 decades. I'm now divorced. The 3 kids are grown up, and they're millennials. They have their own lives, and I'm still an expat. So that's how I've kind of found myself to this point. And part of the reason that I started the YouTube channel was because I found that there's a lot of information out there for expatriate guys that seems to revolve around, how do I get a cheap beer? What do I do if my girlfriend asks to buy the family buffalo? All of this kind of stuff.
We've all been there.
We've all been there, yeah. And my experiences as an expat in all of these different countries over the years, sometimes as a trailing spouse, but I always worked, except in 2 countries, but I've always worked as well, is that none of that was relevant. Things that were relevant to me were just not being addressed. So my idea is more about, information about the real life of women who have decided to, for whatever reason, uproot and find themselves in Asia, which may be culturally so different to what they're used to. And they may have only chosen Asia because they've been here on holiday for a few times and it was really nice, so they thought they'd try it. And we all know, anybody, you're an expat yourself, you all know that real life as an expat is not the same as being on holiday.
Completely different.
Yeah.
Completely different. You've been somewhere on holiday and you think, oh, this is nice, I could live here. Aren't the people so nice? Oh, yeah, the people who work in the hotel whose job it is to be nice to you.
They are nice to you.
Of course they're nice.
Yeah, they are. Yeah.
It's never the same as actually living in a place.
Yeah.
Not at all. How are those places different to, I guess they're all different. So you're in Macau, Hong Kong. Yeah. How are they, just some of the big differences? Promote your business on the Hua Hin Today podcast. Email info@huahintoday.com or DM us now.
If I want to be really basic about it, I would say that places like Singapore and Macau and Hong Kong are obviously Chinese communities, Chinese-based communities. And keep in mind that I was in Macau in 1988. So we're like 1,000 years ago. It was a fishing village. There was one casino owned by Stanley Ho. The apartment building that I lived in was waterfront. That apartment building is now more than a kilometre from the sea because of the reclamation. There used to be 3 islands. There are now 2. So I'm talking the old days. Okay.
Right.
And it was a Portuguese enclave. And guess what? I don't speak Chinese and I don't speak Portuguese. So it was hard. It was hard. And I had a new baby. It was hard. So those 3 Chinese cultures, then Malaysia, which is a real blend of cultures. It's got the Malay, it's got the Chinese Malay, it's got the Indian Malay, and a big expatriate community as well. Very vastly different. Thailand, yet again, sets itself aside completely because it's a Buddhist country.
Yeah. Religion
isn't the be-all and end-all. I'm a non-religious person, but it does affect culture. So all of these places are vastly different, but none of them, I've never been horrified by any of them. I've just had to learn new things.
Yeah. When you were in Macau, I guess in those days, of course it's like pre-internet, mobile phone. It's a completely different experience.
Yeah.
How did you get on with the other expat wives and partners at that time, or were you kind of on your own? That must have been difficult with a baby as well.
Yeah, it was very hard. Actually, Macau was a real... to be honest, I had been in Singapore before, so I'd been expat for a bit. But Macau was very hard. I met one other person who was non-Portuguese, who I went to an expat ladies coffee morning thing. I don't even remember how I found out about it. And they were all Portuguese wives of the local officials. So even though Macau is the size of a stamp, they had arrived by car in furs. And because they were ladies of the government, or their husbands were important people, And there was me, sort of like quite young with this young child. They didn't really speak to me, and I found it very isolating, and I nearly left my partner every second week. I was like, I'm not doing this. And you're right about the pre-internet. Telephone calls back in the day, I don't know if you remember, but, they used to have pips where when you made a phone call, it would go beep, 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 and warn you that that's another 3 minutes, and they were expensive. So the only contact I had with the outside world were these Sunday phone calls where, you would listen to make sure that you hadn't spoken for an hour because that was the cost of a week's groceries. So it was very, very different. Being an expat then to now is very different. But that's not to say there aren't great stories about now expats as well.
Were some of the same issues that you experienced then, now you've launched a YouTube channel, are you finding that some of those issues are still, or is it a different set of... Different sets of issues, but I think what drives people to be expatriate is the same. I don't think that really changes. What do you think does drive people to be an expat? A slight amount of madness, but I say that in a good way. Oh, Wendy, we can get into this. You can talk to me about this for sure. Yeah, like I mentioned, you said, about how I got to this point, and I said I've never really felt rooted in any one particular place. And I don't know if that's, I don't know if that's a genetic thing or whatever, but I definitely think that there has to be something special about someone who suddenly says, do you know what would be the best thing for us to do right now is uproot everything, go to a place where I don't speak the local language, none of the paperwork is the same, and I'll do that for a few years and see how that goes. Yeah, I know we can bring it up, but so you did a video about expats being a bit weird or broken toys, which we'll come on to in more detail, but what you've just said there, being an expat, when you think about it, you are making the conscious decision to uproot everything you know and are comfortable with, to leave your friends and family, to move to the other side of the world and say, this is going to be me for possibly forever. Yeah, that's quite strange behaviour. It's utterly bizarre behaviour. But if you think about it, Jonathan, I'm a huge history fan. And I look back at, let's say, the people that went on the Mayflower. Okay. I mean, 1640, get on a funny old wooden boat and travel across the world to a place where there's not even a tap, So, more recently, when you think about those Brits who went on the 10-pound trips to Australia. Yes, and just say goodbye to everybody, 10-pound palms, And so there is a kind of, there is something in a certain part of the community's psyche. This will be okay. Even though there's 1,000 red flags, it'll be like, this will be hard, but
we'll be all right. Let's try it anyway. And I think that's slightly mad.
Yeah, maybe there's that. For some people, it's always like that idea of like bettering yourself, or okay, it's a step into the unknown, but it'll be better than what we're leaving here. Maybe
can be.
Yeah, it's a funny thing that you mentioned as well, or I mentioned at the start of you working in radio.
Yeah.
And you said you'd always worked, or often worked in the different places. How did you get into radio and broadcast? Is that what you were doing back in?
Yeah, so in Australia, I went to something called the AFTRS, which is the Australian Film, Television and Radio School. And it's kind of a back end of the entertainment industry. So it teaches people how to be cameramen or sound specialists or whatever.
Okay.
But the only performing part of that university is the radio broadcasting. So they teach radio broadcasting, so communication through radio broadcasting. And I had always had an interest in radio. I'd always been a debater and a public speaker. Talking comes naturally to me.
Yeah.
I love music. I can't play music, but I love music. So I'm one of the graduates of the radio program, and I worked in Australia, in Sydney, and in a syndicated show as well across Australia, a talkback show, until. And then when I moved to Hong Kong, I worked for the government, RTHK, and also I was the breakfast announcer for a channel called Metro Plus.
Oh, brilliant.
Also worked in the newsroom sort of things and producing and stuff. I also worked in theatre in Hong Kong a lot, directing, producing, and also on stage. So there's always been a show-off element to what I do.
Okay, you did a theatre performance here, right?
I did, yeah.
A one-woman
show with Bill Page, the great guitarist. And that was a show that I had put on in Hong Kong many times and was very successful. It's actually written by a Canadian playwright. And I'm not a great singer, but there again, I'm one of these give it a go type people. So, and it was well received. It was a good show.
What brought you to Hua Hin specifically?
Okay, so I've got 3 kids.
Yeah.
When they had finished going through uni and financially things were easing off, by this stage I was divorced and living by myself in Hong Kong. I got to a point where after 16 years in Hong Kong, I'd probably had enough. Things were changing. It was, well after the handover.
When you say had enough, like what, the Hong Kong life?
I was just working.
Because not of expat life, because you didn't think to go back to Australia or
The
New
thing is,
Zealand.
I had my own company, and anybody who knows if you work for yourself, you work for a bit of a bitch, right?
Yeah.
So I would work and work and work and work and work, and I just got tired. And I missed writing. I've always been a writer as well, and I'd sort of half finished a couple of books, which are still half finished, by the way. And so I thought, and I wanted an out, and I was sailing with a friend. I didn't have a boat, but he did. And I said, I don't know if I can just, this pace after 16 years, I'm tired. And he said, you should go to this place called Hua Hin. And I had been to Thailand many times. My younger children actually went to boarding school in Phuket while I was busy getting divorced. So I'd never heard of Hua Hin. So I arrived in Hua Hin. I'd sort of packed up everything. It took about 2 years. I kind of wound everything down and, got on a plane and, went and visited the kids first, got here. And he said, you can stay in my house. And his house wasn't finished. I didn't have a kitchen. So I was like, dude, there's no kitchen. So I kind of, let's see. And I realised I'm totally adult ADHD. If I'm not busy, I'm going crazy.
Oh, right, yeah,
so,
I think I'm a bit like that. Yeah. I've got
we're good people.
Stuff. Yeah.
We're good people. Yeah, we're creative people.
Others might say otherwise.
Yeah, no, we're good people. Yeah. So I started working. But of course in Thailand, there was no job for the type of things that I did. So I got myself a TEFL, as you do, teaching English as a foreign language. And I taught at Salesian School, which is a local school, for a year. I taught grade 5 as a native speaker with a TEFL. I'm not a teacher per se. So I made it, because I'm theatrical, I made it about, games and fun. And it's actually that I did that for a year. It was a year contract. And then that through people had seen that I'd done corporate role play training and things like that. And I've ended up in another job, I don't know if I should talk about my job, but not related to that, in a more sort of a corporate side. Still to do with communication, but in a resort. So I've stayed. I work with great people.
And that was never part of the plan.
Never,
for you.
Absolutely never. Absolutely. And I tell people, they say, what are you doing in Thailand? What are you still doing there? It's more than 10 years now, Jonathan.
Yeah.
And I say, I'm working for this resort. And they're like, you're doing what? What are you doing?
Yeah. So the people from like your life elsewhere that know you from radio and broadcasting are like, what, you doing what?
Yeah.
But then I guess people like me who know you from your work here are like, oh, what, you used to work in
Yeah,
Rocket? It's funny, right?
Yeah. And the internet is a great thing because things that go on the internet never die. And sometimes people are like, oh, really? What have you done? And I'm like, listen, it's not an exciting name, but just type in the name. I'm not famous. I'm not saying that, but it's hard to explain. It's just too much. The story is too long.
Oh, I can relate to that though, especially with, I didn't wake up. I'm from Stockport near Manchester, right? And I didn't wake up one day and think I'm moving to Hua Hin, Thailand. And it's funny, and none of this was part of the plan. I don't know what the plan was.
Yeah.
I still kind of don't know, to an extent. A bit better now, but yeah, and it's funny how those things work out sometimes, And a long story short for me was I basically got offered a job and thought I'll do that for a couple of years.
Yeah.
And that ends
and
up
here
being
you
more
still
than
are.
10 years. And it sounds a little bit similar to what you do.
Maybe that's even the expatriate thing. Maybe that kind of leaping from rope to rope is still part of it. And there's also that I'm not that life is what happens to you while you're busy making other plans kind of concept.
Definitely.
And if you are not so hung up on keeping things the same, if a little bit of, I always say that it's like there's a little part of me that needs that kind of quickening, that kind of adrenaline rush of like, oh God, what's going on? That makes me do the next thing. I need that buzz. Maybe that is reflective in our workplaces as well, even though I've stayed with the same company now for more than 8 years. But, it's always changes every day.
Yeah.
We kind of need that.
Yeah.
Some people don't need that.
I think back to when I worked in the UK and stuff, and it was the same, kind of the jobs were the same every day, and I would sit and clock watch until, and I had some good jobs in the UK, but at times I was a bit like, I won't say I was a bit feckless, a bit lazy, honestly.
Yeah.
When I look at myself now, and I think it's because things always change, they're always new, I'm more interested in it, and you just keep yourself busy all the time. Whereas, back in Manchester, it was never like that, really.
Yeah, and I feel guilty when I sort of start talking about that on camera, because I've referred now in 2 of my videos to, people at home who are always renovating their houses, and I feel like I'm being a cow for saying, because there's nothing wrong with renovating your house. Listen, I was married to an architect for 20 years, renovations, I get that, but I don't mean to diss the people at home, but I'm a bit like you. I've gotten to the point now where I've been expatriate for so long that my tribe are not those people back at home. They have had the last 30 plus years, building their connections and staying in their bubble. And that's okay. It's okay. It's a good life. I'm not knocking it. But for me now, I'm past that point where I can ever fit back into that bubble.
You never think you'd end up back living in Australia?
No, I can't see it. I used to worry about that, particularly, after my divorce and the kids grew up and my kids are sort of spread out, and I thought, what's going to happen to me? And then I look around here in Hua Hin and there's loads of people having a great life. I also am not someone who feels that I'll never not be doing something, like some kind of work.
Yeah.
I'm not a kind of sit around the house kind of watch TV girl. But even if I was, there's a lot harder landings than this one.
Oh, yeah. I'll be honest, the thought that I'm really proud of where I came from, and I kind of talk down about Stockport and Manchester all the time, but it's coming from.
It's very nice.
I'm coming from a place of endearment, right?
Yeah.
But the idea of me living back in Stockport now after all this time kind of scares me. I think that would be much more difficult to do that than it ever was to move here and to live here.
Yeah.
I don't know, they call it like reverse culture shock or whatever they call it, I don't know. But that idea of going back there, and I just think it'd be so different. And like you say, that's not my tribe.
They're not your
like
tribe.
you say. But
Yeah.
I want to talk more about this idea of tribe and stuff, because I'm not entirely sure what my tribe is here, really. But the things here there'd have to be a massive change of circumstance for me, I think, to be back in anywhere in the UK.
Yeah.
I think,
Yeah.
it's pretty terrifying.
Yeah.
My arms are going sweaty thinking about it.
No, I'm not sending you back. You do not have to go back. I'm not sending you back. But that's also one of the things that, with the channel, that I wanted to talk to people, be it female or male, doesn't matter. It says the female expat, but I've got 50% guys watching, 50% females watching, so whatever. But the thing I wanted to say to people is that you need to be aware that if you do go overseas, 4 years is the plan, 5 years is the plan, 10 years is the plan. You have to prepare for the fact that when you do go home and check on everybody, you might not fit in the same sort of jigsaw puzzle way that you were expecting. And you need to know that before. Now, did I know that before I left? No, I didn't. But with this experience behind me, as someone who's done this for a while, I feel that we need to talk about the realities of this situation, because you have to take those rose-coloured glasses off if you're going to commit to an expatriate lifestyle. I'm not saying you shouldn't be positive. Of course, it's very positive. If I didn't like it, I wouldn't do it.
Yeah.
You wouldn't be here either,
yeah.
right? But the truth is, these are some real things that actually happen to people when they've been away for a long time.
What are some of like the rose-tinted things then people look at like expat life? I mean, I guess I know the answer to this, but go on. I'd love to hear your thoughts.
That everything's a party all the time and everything runs smoothly, and you're always going to get along with everybody, and all of this kind of thing. And the thing is, that's not realistic in our own cultures, right? So add on to that language difficulties, the heat in Thailand, for example, but any other country too. Malaysia's the same, Singapore's the same, right? Hong Kong in the summer, brutal, brutal. If all of these things that you just don't see when you're on holiday, as you exactly said, when you're staying in a hotel and everybody's so friendly, it's like, wow, everybody's so friendly.
Yeah.
No kidding. Like, they would like a tip. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
So when the policeman stops you and harasses you and doesn't stop the person beside you because they're brown and they go through and you're white and you got copped, the first time you're like, oh, that's weird. And the second time you're like, really? Is this what's happening?
Yeah, other things as well, like the frustration sometimes. I think, I don't think being an expat is for everyone, and I'm sure you could talk more about that as well. But I think there's an element that you've kind of got to be prepared to go with the flow. Yeah. Especially here, there'll be loads. I've been living here a similar amount of time to you, and there's times even now where you don't fully know what's going on.
Yeah.
You might be sat in the tax office. I had a tax thing recently, and kind of none of us knew what the hell was going on, right? Yeah. And you've just got to remain polite, go with the flow. Yeah. And if you're not someone who can do that, I think...
Oh, you would have a really rough time.
Yeah.
When you ask me what the differences are between the different countries, I've said to other people that Thailand has been my great learning for patience, because you can probably guess I'm not a hugely patient person. I'm a kind of like a personality kind of, let's get going. Chinese communities generally, very efficient, let's go, everything's just tick, 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 tick. They have to be, particularly in China or other places, just so many people. Okay. So you've got to, and they tend to be, and this sounds like it's weirdly racist, but it's not. It's just my experience. Singapore, for example, there are ways by the book, this is how it works. Okay. It doesn't always work that way, but 90% of the time, Thailand, sabai. And when I first got here, I took up Muay Thai. And I remember going to my first Muay Thai lesson, and I had booked 10 lessons, and I'd come straight from Hong Kong, which is go, 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 time is money, this is how it works, trains run on time. And I get to my Muay Thai lesson in the Grand, and my 10 minutes beforehand, so that I would be on time, and my coach, my trainer, was asleep in a bed. And I turned to the guy who I'd paid money to, and I said, is that my trainer? And he said, yes. And I said, is he sleeping? And he said, yes, he'll be ready. And I just had to sit there, Jonathan, and breathe and breathe. And sure enough, at whatever it was, 9 o'clock, 1 minute to 9, he sort of woke up and had a birdie and, a bit of Red Bull, and we were in the ring in no time, and that was fine. But I had come off because sabai. Now, having been here for 10 years, there was a power outage. I'm like, yeah, whatever.
Yeah.
One of the first phrases I learned at work was jai yen yen, cool your heart, because I was surrounded by colleagues who'd say, Kun Wendy, jai yen yen. I'm like, okay, all right, I got it.
Yeah. So, it'd almost be weirder now if the guy was on time and ready to go.
I'd be like, what's going on? Yeah.
What's up with you? Is he new? What's up with you? Yeah.
That's right. So that is what is, but better for my mental health, let's be honest. If you can handle that, because things do go wrong. And things go wrong in our country too.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
You know, all the time. Like, that's the other thing about
all the time.
people, this red-tinted glasses. Some expats who are here and they're like, oh, in my country, you know, it would never be like this. I'm like, have you visited your country? Because it's us.
Yeah.
You know, I was recently in the States. It was nuts. Yeah. And, I mean, it's nuts right now. but, you know, like things break everywhere.
Yeah.
So it can happen to anybody. Yeah. And part of the frustration might be that you don't speak the language or don't speak it as well. So you're not getting the same communication. But effectively, you know, bureaucracy is bureaucracy.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. We'll talk about your YouTube channel more detail in a second. But just to go back to talking about tribe, have you found your tribe here?
Yeah.
How did you do that? And does it find you? What? Try and explain a little bit about that to people.
That's a good question. So I have got a good tribe. I've got a good, you know, support network, the sisterhood here. I think it takes more time than people expect. Now, I'm pretty independent, but having said that, we all need company and we all need someone to call on. I was very lucky that I found my first sort of close friend here. I found on the first time I ever went out to one of these Hua Hin ladies things, and everybody else knew each other. She was new and I was new. We sat next to each other, and Sharon, and we've been friends ever since then. We do not understand each other politically, but for the rest of it, I love her to death. So that was someone, and sometimes you just need one person who's kind of a neighbour or something. It does take time, and I think loneliness or feeling alone is a real thing that expatriate women need to think about. Because if they think they're going to, you know, they see all the parties and everything's going to be great, but that's very surface, right? You know, you go along, you have some drinking buddies, you know, everybody has a good time and then nobody calls you. And it's not because they don't like you, it's because they're busy with other things. So that is something. So, but over time, I have met, you know, a core group I have lots of friends, but I've met a core group of women that I know that I could call in an emergency who I kind of get and they get me. But it does take some time. You need to kind of reach out into the expat communities, whether you're into the arts or you like cooking or you're a daytime drinker or you love, you know, marathon running. There's someone for everyone out there. You don't have to have 20. You just need to have one to start to be in your corner. And you be in their corner. And that may change too. You know, you might 3 years down the road, you might think, oh, that person that I met, they're not really my tribe anymore.
Have you had any, you don't have to name people, but if you had
sure.
Like
you know, you people you see all the time and then you see them less.
Yeah.
My situation, because I work sort of, you know, 50 hours a week, it's a little bit different. There's not that many expatriate women working here, but there are some.
Yeah.
So, you know, my situation, I'm not available in the day for lunch. You know, I'm just not.
Yeah.
But it does, you know, it ebbs and flows. But again, you know, you've just got to accept that is that as well, particularly if you're flying solo like me. Now, if you've come with a partner, you've got a husband, you know, you've got your support buddy there. Yeah. But you don't have to worry about it, but you do have to give yourself a good 6 months before you find that person and know that it may take that long.
Yeah. Have you found it quite easy? Do you think it's easy to make friends as an expat?
I think it is, but let's go back to this idea that we're all slightly broken.
Yeah.
Because you meet, I mean, I love my girlfriends. They're fantastic, you know, and they're amazing support to me. I have met some people where I'm like, you're great, you're weird, you're weirder than weird. Okay. So like, okay, pop you, like, nice to see you every so often, pop you in that category over there. So I've met people and there is somebody for everybody, but, you know, I'm not everybody's cup of tea. And it is normal to kind of have that ebb and flow in relationships as well.
Yeah,
that does happen.
Yeah. I asked the question. I'm thinking from my own perspective. I think it's funny. When I was back home, we had a big and I guess it's getting a bit older as well. That it contributes. But back in the UK, I had a big social network. You know, nights out. There'd be sometimes 20, 30 of us. You know, big group of us. And as that's gone on, that dwindles. And I think it's an age thing.
It is an age thing. Yeah.
But then I think being here. And I don't expect the violence to get out, but I think of actual friends here, I could probably count them on one hand, really.
Yeah.
I could definitely count them on one hand.
Yeah.
And through this job, I get to meet, and it's a privilege that I get to meet so many people.
Sure.
I have tons of acquaintances.
Yes, yeah.
But I think friends.
Yeah, but they say that as we age, that we kind of get to know ourselves better. And you don't need... I mean, there are people who, you know, constantly go to lunches where there's 30 people and they see the same 30 people and they're having a good time. Good for them. That's great.
Yeah.
But I think as we age, we do tend to keep that inner sanctum a little bit closer. And because we know ourselves better. And I also think, just on that topic, if I may bring this up, one of the things about expats is that I think there are expats, and maybe I'm the same, I'm not sure, who are not only sort of disconnected from back home, but actually running away from it.
Yeah, there's this idea that expats are kind of running away from something.
Yeah. And if you are trying to outrun, let's say a problem, let's say a mental health problem, if you're trying to outrun that and you think that the expat society is going to fix that, that is not going to work for you.
For sure. I would say, UK is my basis for comparison, but if you're sat in the UK now watching this or watching YouTube videos about becoming an expat because you think running to be an expat is going to mentally make you feel better, put you in it, I would say that's the last thing, really.
It's quite stressful.
And Thailand specifically, I think, because if you have got mental health problems, there's next to no support for you here.
Particularly
really.
in Thailand. It's particularly...
in English anyway.
Yes,
I don't know what
true.
it's like for Thais, but
no, same. I sort of looked into it after, having sort of had encounters with unfortunate events, and it is very difficult. What I found out, there's a really good documentary, I think it's by Deutsche Welle actually, they do good documentaries, and it was about psychiatric care for Thais in Thailand. Oh, right. And I may be corrected by the Thais, but they had done quite an extensive investigation, and what they discovered was that because of, face, the idea of, the embarrassment of having someone who's unwell, quite often what families would do, they would say to someone who's suffering, go and talk to a monk. You should go and stay in a temple for a while and, and kind of treat it that way. And if you are bipolar, that's not going to help you. You need medication. But there was, so that was number one. Number one was the social shame around it, the availability and the understanding of what mental health is, but also simply how many graduates of, psychology and psychiatry are in Thailand. And it's not a huge amount.
Oh, right.
It's not a huge amount.
Oh, right.
So there's fewer doctors or, specialists able to help you. Plus you've got that other barrier, and that's for the local community, let alone if you're a Westerner. Now, these days you can get counselling online, obviously, that's sort of available. But I do kind of, I do sort of say to people in my videos, if you are someone who has social problems, you have a really hard time making friends in your own country and you're not looking a little bit inward, it may not be that much easier. Yeah. It might not be easy at all. Here, it's a smaller pool for a start.
Yeah, I agree completely. Okay, let's talk about your videos then, and your channel, The Female Expat. We'll put a link to it on the screen somewhere.
Bless your heart.
Why have you started a channel? YouTube can be a bit of a tough crowd as well. Are you ready for?
Oh yeah. I've already had one comment that was something like, "You're talking out of your neck." Something. What are you talking about? My reply to that was, "Thank you for stopping by and helping the algorithm." Because
that's one thing they don't know, right?
Because everybody who comments, the YouTube says, "Oh, she's popular." So look, I'm 50.
I think you're someone who wouldn't be bothered by that stuff anyway.
I'm 56, and I've worked in public arenas all of my life. Come at me. And if I am talking smack, let me know. I'm also able to be educated. I'm not so narcissistic that I'm egotistic, but not narcissistic. So I'm not so, narcissistic that if I've said the wrong thing, I'll find out, I'll learn. I'm prepared to learn. These are only my opinions and my thoughts anyway. And I say that, it's my channel. This is what I think, but I'm happy to learn. So I'm not worried about that. And your other question was, why did I start it?
Why?
Because I think women are underrepresented online. There are, throw a stick, hit a YouTuber who's been in Thailand for 5 minutes, telling us where
cost of living,
where the best beer is and how to get the cheapest condo and, all of this sort of stuff. I even did one of my early videos, which I wanted to say this, was this whole idea of, and forgive me, I'm probably going to get some hate for this, but at least it'll help your algorithm, is the guys who are 65 plus and they've got the, 25-year-old girlfriend, and does she love you for a long time? Now, listen, what you do in your bedroom, that is none of my business. I don't care. And if you find love or whatever that is, I am happy for you. Please stop having babies. If you are over 65, tie a damn knot in it. Go and get a vasectomy for the love of God, because, I'm happy. Look, shag her to death. She will shag you to death first. Do you need to have a baby when you're 70? Do you? Because you're going to be dead by the time that kid's 10.
Or I've got to say the flip side of that will be, the guy who you're speaking about, he'll say, well, I can be a great father, I can provide financial and all stuff like that.
Still be dead by the time he's 85.
Yeah.
So and having said that, these guys, they are good dads, but some of them I see they're a bit cranky. So all of that kind of thing. So all of that is represented, but never from the point of view of a woman. Do you know how hard it is to buy decent bras in Asia?
This is one of the notes I've got. So you were giving very practical tips.
Yes. Look at this chest. They do not support themselves, okay? They do not.
It was stuff like buying bras and you were mentioning about different moisturisers.
Whitening creams.
Right.
Whitening creams, which I rather embarrassingly in Hong Kong sort of growled at a woman who kept trying to sell me whitening creams. And I turned around to her and said, listen, I'm white. That was not her point, but that was my point was I was frustrated. So there are some very practical things. So if you're over I'm going to say a B or maybe a C cup, you need to think about the boobies, because it is hard, and also sweaty things, particularly in Thailand, right? Cotton things, underwear for women that are cotton. Marks and Spencer's carry them. Everywhere else it's nylon, and that is brutal in the summertime, I can tell you. So that sort of thing, moisturisers that don't have weird things in it that your skin doesn't need. Hair dye colour. I don't dye my hair. I'm happily going grey. But women who want to have like goldy coloured hair or something like that, and they want to buy the boxes, nope. Because Asian women tend to have darker coloured hair, right? So when they cover the grey, they cover it with black.
Right.
Whereas Falang women cover it with red, but you can't buy the red. So you need to think about that. So there's a few sort of practical things. Bathing suits, same deal as with the bras, right? Bathing suits that aren't either completely bedazzled and bejeweled and not designed for the swimming pool, or that are going to cover all your wobbly bits.
Designed for Instagram selfies.
Yes,
probably.
That's
not
it.
even the swimming pool. It's not getting wet.
Yeah, and that's true. That's 100% true. Yes, just like, do I look good in this? Do I look good in this?
Yeah.
And this comes also to the matter of size for women. Asian sizing, which has long been a joke amongst expat women. I don't know about for expat men, but it's long been a joke. I mean, I'm not a small girl, but when I was in America, I was in an M, medium, because by American standards, I'm positively svelte. But in Asia, I'm like a 4X.
Right. Yeah, it's a little bit similar for men.
It is.
And stuff. Like I have to try and like 3 sizes to
find the right ones.
Or when you sign up to like these running events and they give you a shirt.
Oh my God!
And now it's like a lottery of. I was running with a mate the other day and he says, I just get XL every time because he knows at least that'll be too big.
Right.
At least it fits. You can wear it. But
Yeah. And when I've done running or walking, things like that, if I've tried to get the bigger size, it's always for the man, and they always say to me, "But you can't have that shirt. You're a woman." And I'm like, "Yeah, I know. Just give me the man size, please. I'll take it." So
one of your videos, I touched on it before, but one of your videos you talked about expats being broken toys, and we've talked about it. And I thought that was really interesting, and the reason why I did, I could probably see myself a little bit in that. I'm not sure if this podcast will turn into therapy. I don't know. I mean, I don't know what you're doing next week, Wendy. But explain a little bit about, there was 2 things in that video I picked up. Expats being broken toys, what you mean by that, and then what's the difference between a migrant and an expat? You touched on that in that video as well. Yeah.
So this idea of expat being broken toys, a friend had said that to me, an American friend, when we were living in Hong Kong, and we were amongst the theatrical artistic crowd. They're a bit broken anyway, and that's okay. And so, this idea, like we were talking about earlier, about what is it that compels people to move. There may be something inside expats that they are a little bit different. The ones that choose to be expats and don't go home or, continue this lifestyle. It's not like they go and do a 4-year contract and they make a ton of money and they pay off their house and that wasn't that interesting and then they're finished. But the ones who stay or choose in their later life to retire out in an expatriate community, then maybe there is something slightly broken about them in terms of whatever normal is. And I don't know what normal is. But my point in the video was, if that is the case, That's okay, because everybody does have their story, and you will find your tribe amongst these other broken toys. I don't necessarily know that we're broken, but we're not always as normal as everybody else. But who wants to be normal, Jonathan? I don't want to be normal.
Yeah. True.
You know, I'd rather shoot myself in the face.
What does that mean anyway?
I know. And normal to me has that sort of normal/boring.
Yeah.
You know,
I think I would agree with that.
And that worries me more.
Yeah.
I would hate to, get to the end of my life and have regrets for not having taken the adventure. Yeah, so if that's the option.
For sure. That's exactly how I think. Just trying. And with your YouTube channel, we talked about it before we started recording it, but like just doing stuff. I'd have more regret if I didn't start this podcast.
Yeah.
We're doing it through Hua Hin Today, or other things I've done. I think, if I hadn't, at least try it.
Yeah,
do you know what I mean?
Yeah. What's the worst thing that can happen?
Yeah, right. What is the worst thing that can happen?
And
you stop doing it. Well,
you stop doing it. Yeah. And someone says, "Didn't you used to do this thing?" You're like, "Yeah, I did, but then I stopped." Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. And then migrant v expat.
That is a huge one. Because in my heart, we are migrants. In my heart, I believe we are migrants.
Yeah, absolutely we are.
But I have friends, dear friends, who would rub up against that word because they don't like the migrants in their home country. And they say, the reason I've had to move away is because of the migrants that have moved into my country, unironically. And what we are is maybe, say in Thailand, economic migrants, because it's much cheaper to live here, let's be honest. If you've retired here, it's not because... it may be because you love, the warm weather and the beaches. It also could be because your pound or your dollar or your krona or whatever it is goes a lot further. Yeah. So face it, like it or not, you're an economic migrant. And these countries are accepting you in as a migrant in that way, even though we're calling you expats. So in my heart, expats, long-term expats are migrants. But the word migrant and migration has such an ugly connotation around it worldwide that I can see people railing against it. And I do find it dichotomous that some people can't see that. People who are, and look, I know how difficult it is in other countries. I hear the stories I see, but I also know that if I was starving to death and my children had no opportunities, would I get on a boat? You bet.
Yeah.
You bet.
Yeah,
I'd make that journey because I'd want that too. Does that mean that all the borders should be open and everything? And have things changed from the past? Yes, they have. But Jonathan, Westerners have been migrating, colonising, expatriating since Adam was a boy. Go back to the Silk Road and tell me again, where did this all start? I'm a huge fan of the Silk Road. I love the concept of the Silk Road, that you would walk for a year to buy something and walk back and sell it. But all of that. So this is not new. We are not breaking the mould. We're now doing it in an easier time that's easier than ever before, but we are also migrants.
Have you seen the makeup of female, or the different types of female expats change in Hua Hin specifically? Yes.
And
I saw in your videos you call Hua Hin a retirement town.
I do.
You would still say that, would you?
When I moved here, most definitely.
Yeah.
I think there is a change, and the change is digi-nomadism, if that's, again, I'm making up words. And also, yes, and I think that makes a huge difference to who's coming here. I think a town like if you're in Bangkok, there are loads of jobs, or there are more job opportunities for expats, and it's different. It's a vibrant scene. It's a big city. Big cities have a different vibe, right? But I would say that there are more and more women coming who are maybe working online or part-time, or they're financially independent. I mean, they are still retired, but maybe semi-retired, maybe
younger?
A little bit younger.
You think they were younger?
A little bit younger. Yeah. The other extraordinary thing is, so for my channel, the analytics show not only that it's a female-male even split, that the majority of people currently watching my channel are in the States and the UK. Now, why are Americans watching silly old me on that channel? They're thinking, is there an exit for me?
Yeah. What the age? The ages of people?
The youngest would be about 35, so millennials, but the majority are 45 plus, 45 to 65s. Yeah, okay. And I'm inside that category, Gen X or somewhere in there. And so, but these women, and oh my gosh, has it grown? In the last 10 years, I cannot tell you how much it's grown. I mean, you cannot swing a cat without meeting single women either digi-nomad women or retired or whatever in this town. It used to be when I first got here that you'd go to one of these women's meetups and there'd be, like 30 people. These things, if they've got a thing and it's got seats for 200, it's sold out in half a second.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
There are so many, not just in Thailand, not just in Hua Hin, all throughout Asia now. Women are like, okay, because it's safe.
Just about to say, why do you think that is?
It's
but
safe.
Safety.
It's safe. I have never, in more than 30 years, I've never really felt threatened anywhere in Asia.
No.
And that makes a huge difference, especially as we get a little bit older.
Yeah, I'm careful to warn people that, serious incidents, they occur.
They do.
But, and you should never forget that, but yeah, it's safe, really.
Yeah, but
stuff like that, there's other dangers here. But in terms of I think back to not all the time, but often a night out, even in my local back home, there'd probably be some kind of fight or the police would have to be called at some point. Yeah, every week or you never see.
You totally forget about it. And last week when I was in Bangkok for work, I went to the Starbucks, which is in Icon Siam, and I was doing some filming because it's got an amazing view from there. Yeah. And as I was walking through the Starbucks, there was a table with bags open and, someone's laptop and a phone and something. Obviously, somebody had just gone to the loo and they just left all of their stuff in the middle of this bustling Starbucks in the middle of a, massively busy hypermall. I mean, seriously. And it's the same everywhere I've ever been. Even in Hong Kong, when a restaurant closes, they put a string around the seats.
Was that the same in other
100%.
Asia?
I've never lived any of those countries that I've mentioned. I've never, Macau now has its, gambling thing, but I'm not in the seedy side of town. But I have never. And you can. My daughter once left her bag. She was hammered drunk on a train in Hong Kong. They picked it up at the next station and brought it back to her. She left the train crying because she'd left a bag and the train had gone ahead. She's still standing there crying. They brought it back to her. I mean, where does that, unadulterated, where does that happen? So safety is a big issue for women and people who are looking to be safe. You're right, some incidents do happen. And there was that documentary recently, which I haven't actually watched about.
No, I've not seen it, but we can talk about it a little bit from I've not watched that documentary. What I did get sent was, I saw the commissioning notes for what the BBC requested and what they got. Now, keep in mind, the BBC still published it, so that's their decision for doing. But what I read of those notes was the BBC were looking for a documentary that was about why younger people in the UK are up in sticks and moving to Thailand. It wasn't about this dangerous side. Yeah, I'll dig them out. Maybe I'll try and put them in the notes or something for this. However, YouTubers say they do that kind of stuff. But yeah, and it sounded very different to what they got. But they've still published it.
Yeah. Well, the bad news sells, doesn't it?
I just think that stuff, I've worked in news here and media for over 10 years and it's always been, it's just like a cheap shot, I think. The Western media do it, dangerous Thailand. For years, they went after Koh Tao as an island, was like they were saying this, that and the other. And there was a couple of really awful crimes happening there. Yeah. And full sympathies to their families and victims and all that. But it's not a dangerous place, really.
When you consider the crime in other countries.
Yeah, and when you consider the amount of people that go there and stuff. And I think, whenever Western media can write a story, for example, about Pattaya without it being like sleazy, sex-den, crime-ridden. Yeah. Don't get me wrong, there's a side to Pattaya that is all of those things and probably more. Yeah. But the flip side to Pattaya is, and I've experienced this as a parent, it's actually a really good place for kids. Yeah. It's good for families. There's a lot to do. Yeah. You won't go anywhere near the walking street side, and you can easily avoid all that stuff. Yeah. But it's kind of never reported. These things get
because bad news sells, and you're a news guy, it, and so I find it sort of. I looked at that and people are, so what? It's not really safe. Are you sure? I'm like, honestly, just take it from me, and you don't have to take it from me. Ask any expat. So safety is a huge issue for women, and if we feel safe here, you can come here and have a good life and feel okay. Yeah, for sure. Feeling safe is important. And then if someone's a single woman, you did a video about expat or women dating. Ah, right. Well, let's be real for a minute. Yeah, let's be real because, for men, that whole thing I think is it's part of the attraction. And I get that, that's okay. But I mentioned this, and again, no shade, everybody, you do what you do. Like, I'm not a man hater or anything like that. I've got, some of my best buddies are guys. And, but what it is this is the truth. There's a lot of guys who move to Asia because they're not really interested in Western women for 100 reasons, their own reasons, whatever. They think we're too bolshy. They're just not attracted to them.
Maybe like failed relationships.
Yeah, failed relationships in the past, some anger in there, whatever the thing is, whatever. And so they move here, and the pool of very beautiful women is very, very large. And those guys are looking for somebody other than the women in their home country. And so you come here. Now, I'm not saying it doesn't happen. There are, on occasion, I hear about women who've met their partners.
Yeah, I know one or two. Yeah, it doesn't not happen.
But and if you're working in a city, it's more likely to happen because you might meet a colleague or, and I also talked about this idea of it being the other way, where it's a Western woman and a local guy. And that also happens. It's about 1 in 20.
Yeah,
and I've got dear friends who are in those relationships.
Same.
And they're great relationships. And again, they might have met them. Sometimes it's professionally they've met them. They have things in common. But in places that are a little bit quieter, the pool is just smaller. I used to go on, as I'm telling something very personal here, but I used to go on Tinder and, do that sort of thing. And I found that if I was going to have a date, then that date would be someone who was here playing golf for 5 days.
Oh, right. Right.
Yeah. And then after a while, I just got fed up with it. But not in a bad way, but that was more likely. And I get it. So if you're coming out here to meet, your expatriate Romeo, maybe just no.
Yeah. And then for people that maybe do see your channel or watch this, what kind of, maybe off the top of your head, I'm putting you on the spot a little bit now, but what kind of like general tips or like rule of thumb kind of advice might you have for a wannabe female expat who's thinking of making the move to Thailand or anywhere
else?
Anywhere really, yeah.
Okay, from a practical point of view, start to think about what sort of visa you're interested in, because that makes a big difference.
Yeah, we've not even talked about
and that's a whole other.
That would be another episode.
Yeah, it'd have to be. But that's something you really want to think about. So if you're retiring, there may be a monetary requirement behind that. You might have to have some funds behind it. Malaysia, that's the way. Thailand, that's the way. So think about the visa. If you're there is a Nomad visa. So if you're a digital content creator or you're working online, you have to prove certain things, but that's okay. There is an education visa in Thailand, which is yearly, that you can kind of, but think about the visa. Don't just get here and think you'll wing it. Think about, are you self-reliant enough to know that you might feel a bit lonely for a few months, that kind of thing. Make sure you've got your healthcare covered, because if you get sick, that's for females or males, doesn't matter. But if you need a hospital, what sort of insurance have you got? What are you going to do for that? Those types of things. Think about what you want to bring. Don't bring too much. Don't bring anything leather or rubber, because it will just disintegrate in the heat. Good it's advice. Just like every woman I've ever known has always had that favourite pair of shoes that they're going to bring for when they go out. They haven't worn it for 2 months. They go to put it on and the heels fall off.
Yeah, not just women. I've lost a couple of RIP, a few pair of Adidas. Yeah,
right? Everything, rubber and leather, like not in this climate. And pets. If you have pets, think about how you're going to bring your pet, because you can bring pets, but it's going to be a 2 to 3 month lead in. And if you, and if you need to take your pet back out, let's say you've been here for 2 years, you don't like it, you have to think about, like in Australia, for example, there's so many regulations because they don't have rabies and things, that your pet will have to go through a whole rigmarole again. It might be another 2 or 3 months to repatriate them. So those types of things are important. And think seriously about your money and the way that you want to live. Having said that, you can be assured that your tribe is here. And in a place like Hua Hin and all of these cities and towns across Asia, there are other expats out there who will help you. One thing I would say, Jonathan, I think this is so true, and one of the things I consider very lucky in my life is that when I've been back to Australia, I find, which is, my adopted home, I find that people can be very protective of what they have, protective of their friendships, protective of their work contacts, protectives. But expatriate communities tend to be quite open. And if you ask a question, someone will help you.
Yeah, I find
because
that.
Everyone's been in the same boat. Everybody's been like, oh my God, this thing happened in my kitchen and I don't know what it is. And someone will say, don't worry, it's okay, this has happened before. So I find expat communities, because we're all, winging it to one degree or another because we're all confused when we arrive. I've always found them very welcoming and very open. And I have a journo friend who visited me in Hong Kong. I was working then in the media. We went out to a few things and she said something. Someone said, I've got a contact for that. Don't worry. And she said to me, do you know in Sydney, no one will ever share their contacts with me. And I said, we are too small a community here to be so protective. There are enough pieces of the pie.
Yeah.
If I know someone and I think it can help you, and there's only a few of us, let's help each other. I know you'll get my back another time. Sweet, So I find expatriate communities wonderful, truly wonderful for being open like that. You do get your odd bods, you do get your nutters.
Always. Yeah, we have the same mindset, particularly at Hua Hin Today. Like we get asked a lot of, do we know this, but can we connect you? Or we always do it because I think particularly if it's like expats, like you said, the community is so small that I just think it's just easier to help people out.
Essentially, just don't be a dick about it. Just don't be a dick.
Yeah, that's a good bit of advice.
Don't be a dick. I say that at my pub quiz that I run. I say that, look, there's only one rule in life. It's a life rule. Just don't be a dick.
Yeah. Okay, before we wrap it up then, so your YouTube channel is The Female Expat.
Yeah.
They can just search on there. You'll see videos. How often are you uploading?
I try to upload a slightly longer one, so like 6 to 10 minutes twice a week.
Okay.
And little shorts and things. It's a bit rough and ready, I've got to be honest with you.
Well.
But it is what it is.
I think that touches on what we said earlier, like just doing it.
Yeah, just do it. And if there's anything that people want me to cover, I always sort of say to people, look, let me know. And if I don't know, I'll find someone who does. In the future, moving forward, I would like to do similar to this type of thing, but with other female expats who've got stories of old. I was speaking to a friend of mine this morning when I was walking my dog on the beach, and she was telling me about when she was in Kuwait in the middle of all of that desert storm and all that, business as an expat. And, those types of stories as well, because there's some great stories out.
Let me make a note of that. Stories of old.
Because
it's in a podcast series.
Yeah. I'll chase you on it. But there are these great stories like Macau back in the day, like these things, because these stories will die if we don't record them.
Yeah.
So, but I'm also happy to, if someone reaches out and says, I heard this, is it true? Or can you find out more about this? More than happy to do that.
So it's only YouTube, you're on Facebook or anywhere else?
I'm not yet. I'm planning, but haven't got there yet.
Okay.
Baby steps.
Before we finish, we'll touch on a little bit about Hua Hin and things you like about it, things you're less keen on it. Are you involved in like a walking group as well?
Yeah. So I used to fancy myself as slightly a bit of a runner, but so I join there's a walking group that walks every Saturday morning. We try and get to different places like weird temples or, strange places. And the purpose of the walking group is to have breakfast, obviously, afterwards.
Yeah, well, running is the same. So, coffee and a croissant after.
Yeah.
So I go, yeah.
So, and I walk, I have a dog, so like you, and so I walk the dog as well. I'm more of a morning person, and I work all of the time. So those kind of that's where I hang out.
Yeah, I see you a lot on the beach at sunrise. I like going on the beach at sunrise. It's just a nice place to be.
It's a beautiful place to be. It's incredible.
Yeah. It's great.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, thanks very much.
Thank you so much.
I think that's it. That was really good. Like I said, we've just started this, and this is the first one we're recording. Whether it'll be the first one published, we're not sure yet. We're kind of just doing it and winging it.
There you go. That's what life is about, right?
For anybody watching, check out Wendy's channel, The Female Expat, on YouTube. And thank you, Wendy.
Thank you so much. Sawadee ka.
Sawadee ka. Thank you for watching and listening to the Hua Hin Today podcast. Don't forget to like, share and subscribe. We're at Hua Hin Today Videos on YouTube and Hua Hin Today News on Facebook. We're also on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. Also subscribe to our email newsletter at huahintoday.com/subscribe. There you'll get the latest news, info and events in Hua Hin. And if you've got a guest suggestion or a topic you'd like us to cover, drop us a message or a comment. We'd like to hear from you. See you in the next one.